Some people do not want your answer. They want your nervous system. They want to know that one sentence can still reach inside you and move something. One message, one look, one disrespectful tone. They want to see your face change. They want to hear your voice tighten. They want proof that the old door still opens. And when you react too quickly, you may believe you are defending yourself. But sometimes you are only showing them where the door is. You are showing them what still hurts. You are showing them what still pulls you out of yourself. This is why not reacting is so often misunderstood. People think silence means weakness. They think it means you have no answer. They think it means you lost. But sometimes the person who refuses to react is not the one who lost power. Sometimes they are the only person in the room who did not hand it away. Because a reaction is not only expression. A reaction is information. It shows people what touches you. It shows them what still owns a part of you. It shows them how quickly they can move you from peace into defense, from silence into explanation, from dignity into emotional negotiation. And not everyone deserves that map. There are people who do not listen to understand you. They listen for the place where your voice changes. They listen for the sentence that makes you rush. They listen for the wound that is not fully closed. And once they find it, they return to it. Not because they want truth, because they want control. This does not mean you should become cold. It does not mean you should pretend nothing hurts. It does not mean you should accept disrespect and call it peace. It means you stop treating every provocation like a responsibility. Not every message deserves your immediate reply. Not every accusation deserves your defense. Not every misunderstanding deserves your exhaustion. Not every person who disturbs your peace deserves a place inside your mind. There is quiet strength in learning to pause before you give yourself away. Because the first thing you feel is not always the clearest thing you know. Your first reaction may feel honest because it is intense. But intensity is not clarity. Sometimes your first reaction is fear. Sometimes it is pride. Sometimes it is the old need to be understood by someone who has already decided not to understand you. Sometimes it is the child in you trying to prove that you are good. Sometimes it is the part of you that still believes peace can be earned by explaining yourself perfectly. But you do not owe people the rawest version of you. You do not have to speak while the wound is still open. You do not have to answer while your nervous system is still shaking. You do not have to respond from the place that was just hit. There is power in waiting until your answer belongs to you again. A pause is not emptiness. A pause is where you stop being pulled and start choosing. It is where you ask yourself, is this something I need to address? Or is this only bait? Is this person trying to solve something with me? Or are they trying to make me lose myself? Do I want to speak because it is necessary? Or because I cannot tolerate being misunderstood? That question matters. Because many people are not controlled by what others say. They are controlled by the fear of what others might think. They react because silence feels dangerous. They explain because being misread feels unbearable. They defend because the thought of someone walking away with the wrong version of them feels like defeat. But maturity begins when you understand something painful. Some people will misunderstand you no matter how carefully you speak. Not because your words are unclear. Not because you failed to explain. Not because there is one perfect sentence you have not found yet. Some people are not confused. They are committed. Committed to the version of you that protects their pride. Committed to making your boundary look cruel. Committed to turning your calm into arrogance. Committed to treating your silence as guilt. Committed to making you the problem. Because that is easier than facing what they did. And when someone is committed to misunderstanding you, more words do not create more truth. More words create more material. More places to twist. More sentences to pull apart. More openings for someone who was never looking for honesty in the first place. This is where calmness becomes dangerous to the wrong people. Because calmness breaks the rhythm they depend on. They expect you to explain. They expect you to rush. They expect you to defend yourself until you are tired. They expect your emotions to become the stage where they perform their power. But when you stop reacting, the performance has nowhere to go. And that is when the room becomes clear. Some people become more respectful when you stay calm. They slow down. They soften. They meet you with more care. Those people were not trying to control you. They were trying to communicate. But others become louder. They push harder. They repeat the insult in a different shape. They try sarcasm. They try guilt. They try silence of their own, but not the peaceful kind, the punishing kind. They say you have changed. They call you cold. They call you difficult. They say you are avoiding the issue. They try to make your peace look like disrespect. They try to make your boundary look like punishment. They try to make your restraint look like weakness because they need your reaction to feel powerful. That is the moment you should pay attention, not to what they say, to what they need from you. Do they need understanding, or do they need control? Do they want a conversation, or do they want a performance? Do they want repair, or do they want your nervous system in their hands again? When you stop feeding the noise, people show you what the noise was for. You begin to see who respects your calm and who depends on your chaos. You begin to see who can speak to you with patience and who only knows how to reach you through pressure. You begin to see who feels safe when you are peaceful and who feels threatened when you are not available to manipulate. You begin to see who is safe with your honesty and who only deserves your distance. This is not revenge. This is recognition. You are not punishing anyone by staying calm. You are refusing to abandon yourself just because someone else arrived with noise. And that refusal changes you. Slowly, you become harder to move. Not unreachable. Not emotionless. Not proud. Just less available to every hand that reaches for your peace without permission. You begin to answer slower. You begin to explain less. You begin to notice the difference between urgency and importance. You begin to understand that not everything demanding your attention deserves your energy. And maybe the deepest shift is this. You stop needing your silence to be understood. You stop standing beside your own boundary explaining why it exists. You stop turning every no into a long emotional presentation. You stop trying to make people comfortable with the limits they benefited from you not having. Because a boundary that needs constant defense is not fully yours yet. Sometimes the strongest boundary is not a sentence. Sometimes it is the absence of one. Sometimes it is not replying at midnight. Sometimes it is walking away before your voice becomes something you regret. Sometimes it is letting someone think what they want because correcting them would cost too much of your peace. Sometimes it is choosing not to enter a conversation where the only prize is exhaustion. But calmness is not passivity. This is important. Not reacting does not mean accepting everything. It does not mean you let people disrespect you. It does not mean you disappear from your own life. There are moments when silence becomes avoidance. There are moments when you must be clear. There are moments when you must say, "Do not speak to me that way." There are moments when you must leave. There are moments when the pattern has to end completely. Calm does not mean you have no boundary. Sometimes calm is the boundary. You can be quiet and still mean no. You can be gentle and still be finished. You can be peaceful and still remove yourself. You can forgive someone internally and still never give them the same access again. That is what many people misunderstand. Not reacting is not permission. It is not surrender. It is not weakness dressed as wisdom. It is the decision not to let someone else choose the worst version of you and then call it your true self. Because some people will provoke you and then judge your reaction. They will push until you break, then point to the breaking as proof of who you are. They will ignore everything they did to create the fire, then blame you for the smoke. So your calm matters. Not because you need to look superior. Not because you need to win. But because your future self should not have to clean up words your wounded self threw into the room. Your peace is not something to rent out to other people's chaos. Your nervous system is not a public place. Your attention is not a toy. Your voice is not something people get to pull from you whenever they are bored, insecure, jealous, or angry. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to wait. You are allowed to let the message sit. You are allowed to let the accusation pass without becoming your emergency. You are allowed to choose the version of yourself that answers instead of letting the wound answer first. And sometimes after the pause, you will still speak. But your words will be different. Cleaner, shorter, less desperate, less tangled in the need to be believed. You may say only what is necessary. You may say it once. You may say it calmly. And then you may stop. Because peace is not only about what you avoid, it is about what you no longer chase. You no longer chase closure from people who benefit from confusion. You no longer chase approval from people who only respect you when you are useful. You no longer chase understanding from people who use misunderstanding as a weapon. You no longer chase the chance to prove that you are not what they decided you are. At some point, you realize that the need to be understood by everyone is one of the quietest prisons in life. It keeps you explaining. It keeps you reacting. It keeps you available to people who have already shown you that your truth is not safe in their hands. The way out is not anger. The way out is not cruelty. The way out is not pretending you do not feel. The way out is self-possession. The quiet decision to remain with yourself when someone is trying to pull you out. The quiet decision to stop treating every provocation like a command. The quiet decision to let your peace become more important than your image. This is where your power returns. Not in the perfect comeback, not in the long message, not in the final argument where you finally make them understand, but in the pause, in the breath. In the moment you feel the hook, recognize it and do not bite. In the moment you realize you can be touched by something without being controlled by it. You can feel anger without becoming anger. You can feel pain without handing it to someone who will mishandle it. You can be misunderstood and still remain whole. The next time someone tries to pull a reaction out of you, pause. Not because you are afraid, not because you have nothing to say, not because they won. Pause because you are no longer willing to abandon yourself for the comfort of an immediate response. Pause because your peace should not be rented by someone else's chaos. Pause because not everything that enters your mind deserves to enter your voice. You do not lose power when you pause. Sometimes the pause is where your power finally returns.